Andrew. How's it going?
It's Friday, 5 o'clock on a Monday.
You just threw me there. I was like, wait, it's Friday?
Well, I saw in the little like promo thing. That's what I was
Oh,
asking.
yeah. Yeah. She puts all those together. And then sometimes it is hard for me to keep track of days, but I can usually tell between like it being a Monday and a Friday. But now I'm very confused. So what you're saying is that it's the weekend tomorrow, right? So,
That's kind of where. Thank you. That's where I was going. Yeah, I was gonna like play this banter piece up and just say that. Yeah, I was hoping for a little more weekend because this week's gonna be really busy. But
yeah,
yeah, here we are, and I'm
I
excited
know.
to chat with you today.
Yeah, and I bet that everybody that's listening right now or watches like, wow, that was the shortest work week ever. And now we can, and then you're going to totally mess some people up, but that's okay. So anyway, we will introduce ourselves. So for anybody who is joining us for the first time for Thrive and EDU, I'm Rachelle and Post and do a lot of things in education. I'm not going to say what they are, but I just really enjoy being part of this community and having an opportunity to bring guests on, to speak with us, to have some fun, to unwind at the end of a Monday or a Friday. And so that is enough about me, but on to my co-host for today, Andrew. Let us know who you are.
Yeah, I'm Andrew Easton, and during the day, typically I'm working as a digital learning coordinator for the Nebraska ESUCC, so kind of the statewide level. But I also have an opportunity to do a bunch of nerdy EDU things, particularly in the vein of personalized learning, whether it's writing about it or doing consulting work or presenting. So, and then doing live shows like this, which is always fun.
Yeah, when you get the message from Rachelle, like, "Hey, Andrew," like, you're like, "What am I in for now?" So it's always great to have you back with us. But today we have I'm really excited about our guest today because I have known Amy for, oh my goodness, I think I first met Amy at FETC in Orlando probably 5 years ago. It was my first time attending and got to know her, got to a little bit about the work that she does. So I want to welcome Amy with us, who is the CEO and co-founder of Peekapak. And so Amy, welcome to our Thrive in EDU. Oh, wait, let's see. There we go. You're muted. I gotcha.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, so we are thrilled for today because one, it's Monday. I don't know if we're thrilled about that, but it's the time of year where we're like heading back to school. A lot of teachers, actually, friends of mine went back a couple of weeks ago. Some of my friends still have like 3 more weeks, but it doesn't matter if you've started or if you're not starting for a couple of weeks. Everybody's thinking about things like back to school. What can I do for my students? What are some of the areas I need to work on? All of that. And something that I've really been talking about a lot in the past year and a half, which surprisingly was not an area that I would consider, I'm not an expert in it. And it's not an area that I was really doing a lot in, but it has been social emotional learning. And so I'm always excited to learn about it. I'm happy that you're here with us today to talk about all of the amazing work that you've done and to share your story with us. And so without any more from me, I would love to hear about, your background, how you got started with it, anything that you want to share with us. And Andrew, I'm going to let you chime in at any time if you have any questions. I'm going to throw it to you to come up with a question later, but I'll let Amy start.
Yeah, no, thank you for that intro. And it's excited to be here because I think social emotional learning has all of a sudden become very top of mind for everyone. And I think not only for educators, but also for families, I think for healthcare, it's become really all of a sudden mainstream. And I think when I first met you, it was like kind of a niche topic. I was using the SEL kind of acronym and people were like, what? And so now it's like all of a sudden everyone knows what that means. And I think it's been interesting as we've used technology to develop what we're doing. And I think that's actually been really timely with the pandemic as well. But I'll tell you a bit about our backstory. I actually started Peekapak with my childhood best friend. So we met when we were 8 and 9, so in grade 4, and we, were dreamers. We always kind of grew up wanting to, maybe start something one day, to tell stories, and her vision and her dream was always to actually be a children's book author. And so we were actually both working in, in industry and good jobs, doing well. And we had once connected, and she was actually living in Hong Kong at the time. And I was in Toronto, and we were just chatting and catching up. And she was telling me how she was working on this new book idea. And the book was all about inspiring children's imagination and creativity and wonder. And we kind of sat there and talked about the theme, and we're like, why are we doing what we're doing with our lives? Like, why don't we shift our time and spend 100% on actually using the power of literature to inspire children to do good? And so we actually, out of that kind of conversation, we started meeting every day. Our time difference was 12 hours. So we had these like late night conversations. But we ended up, eventually kickstarting and starting, like we actually did like a Kickstarter, and our initial concept was funded. And then we started building kind of prototypes, and eventually we actually evolved and became this SEL platform. And it's been an amazing process where we've worked with a ton of fantastic, I love your cat. Whenever I've at friends' houses, I've been like during a demo, and a cat will just like, hop over me, and it's amazing. No one flinches. But it's been amazing, because I think one of the big proponents, and probably when I met you, it was really kind of partnering and being hand in hand with educators. And so we didn't want to develop this in a vacuum. We really wanted to develop our resources to be something that would overcome what the current barriers are in the classroom. And so one of the first things that we did is we actually interviewed over 300 educators, and we asked them, is social emotional learning important? And they would all say, of course, yeah, character. And it might have been called character education. It might have been called well-being education. There's so many different frames around it. And so we said, okay, that's fantastic. Okay, are you doing it? And this is 5 years ago, right? And so they would say, well, I try, I model it. I got some lessons off Pinterest. Maybe I got this lesson from Teachers Pay Teachers, but no one was like actually, spending a significant amount of time at the time, at least. Some people there were some outliers, but it was, rare. And we'd ask them, well, that's, it's important, but you're not actually spending time. So what is the disconnect? And they would come back saying, well, I don't have time. It's not like I'm already having to teach English, math, all these kind of core subject areas, and I'm evaluated on it. So how do I fit something in that is not graded, is not something that's required, when I already feel up to here with all my work? And so that was the big kind of dilemma that would come across. And what we had done is, in the early days, we actually, before we developed any technology, we actually just created a hypothesis lesson. We said, all right, so what if we combine literacy with social emotional learning? So let's create a actual storybook that embeds a lot of the SEL kind of components, like how, Cody or, Leo, his palms are sweaty, his heart's beating fast, he's feeling nervous. We're talking about that self-awareness that he's feeling. Or even the self-management skills, he says a poem to himself to calm himself down and ease his nerves. Can that be an effective way that, embeds it into read alouds? Maybe we even create different levels of text to help make it into guided reading, give them ELA-based lessons. So we actually just put a whole series of lessons together in a PDF form. And we said, will you please take this lesson for free? And, would you actually try it out and give us some feedback and fill out a survey? We had 13,000 educators sign up for that lesson. Wow. And so we're like, okay, I think we're on to something. And so from there, we kind of actually interviewed a lot of those educators. We met with them, we learned with them, we went into classrooms, and we started building what Peekapak is now today. And Peekapak's evolved from just, the curriculum. It now has learning games. It has a mood check-in tool, so we can actually gauge how students are feeling. And it's been a delight. Like we continue to work with our educators to kind of learn what will make their lives easier or better and help them with their social emotional learning needs. And I think they're our biggest champions and biggest kind of advocates to help us understand, like, what are we going to do better and adapt and evolve. And so it's been a really fun journey. And I appreciate all the educators who work with us and continue to work with us.
Yeah.
Gosh,
Good
and what a challenge to do this work, because on some level, like the students need the language, right, to be able to talk about these things, so they even understand the words that might go with their feelings. Then you also have the strategies that come with that, which I heard in your answer there, right, that take a moment to calm down and count to 10, or those types of things. And then I love your vision for embedding this within that literacy piece, not only from the standpoint of it allows teachers then to find a place to fit that in when there doesn't seem like there's time, but I think placing those strategies in scenarios is critical for actually starting to think reflectively about implementation. And so, what other, I mean, is that sort of the big three there, or is there more to it as well that you would say that goes into your efforts to kind of layer these, to really make this something that can shift a person's approach to their own, social emotional learning?
I think it's high level for sure, but as we get into the details, we definitely, so I'll give you a bit of a sense of the structure of how we would work with a teacher, but we would have this like anchor text, like basically a story that acts as the narrative. And like you said, kind of gives scenarios, relatable scenarios where students could be like, oh yeah, at the start of school, I felt nervous. I also felt nervous, just like Leo. And we want to give scenarios where we can reflect on and also tie back to the student's experience. So they can, think about, okay, maybe I didn't feel nervous. Maybe I felt excited, but how did that show up in my face and body? How did I react? How did I respond to that situation? So the story acts as that kind of anchor. And then we actually have a whole scope and sequence. So part of the learning process, again, we actually first created like these 4 45-minute lessons. And teachers were like, I am not doing this. And so we ended up breaking it down to like 15 to 25-minute bite-sized lessons. And we scaffolded the approach. So we said, okay, let's go from introducing, what is self-regulation? How do we then show, how do you demonstrate this skill? And then eventually, how do I internalize? How do I apply this to my own life? So how do we then get that shift and that transition? And so we had these classroom lessons. And then the second part we layered on top of it was each of those lessons has a home component. So after the teacher teaches a lesson, we actually summarize what they taught that day. We give an activity for families to do both in English and in Spanish. So we want to make sure that we have that access. And then that's sent through our platform where we can measure, if parents are opening those messages or not, and, if they're opening the books. And then they can actually, they're pretty easy. They're things like, we're learning about calm bodies in the classroom. We're going to practice that calm body at home. Let's play our favorite song on our phone and dance to it, and then pause and practice that calm body. So it could be something as simple as that. And then the last piece we have is this game. So students can actually log into their own account. And what's neat is, so this is kind of going back to our kind of maybe our organization, and my co-founder, Angie. So we love narrative worlds. And so if you think about, narratives like Harry Potter or Star Wars, even as a, series, they really immerse you. And so for us, we didn't want to just create a curriculum. We were like, how do we make this that students come back and want more? Like they look forward to Peekapak time, that they kind of keep wanting more and more. And like the stories are such a great narrative and hook. And so what we actually did is we created a whole world behind it. So they live in a world called Peekaville. The architecture is inspired by Gaudi, the Spanish architect in Barcelona. So you'll see this like wavy mosaic tiles. We have our own tradition. So we have Winter Wonderlude instead of, like as our own tradition over the holidays. We have our own sport called Berry Ball. And students learn about those things. And then all of a sudden in Peekaville, the game, it's this interactive whole world. They get to become a Peekapak character. And they get to help our characters overcome different SEL challenges. They get to practice those different skills through comprehension questions. And all of a sudden we can track actually how students are learning. And so we have these like both, it's basically a blended approach. So we have like this teacher-led component, but we also have the student component too. And it's all wrapped up in this fun world, which we hope that, kids fall in love with and enjoy that learning experience.
I can say one, I didn't know that about the architecture and the design of it, but I love the look of it. And as a Spanish teacher, I totally appreciate that now, knowing just the design of it. But even when I first met you, like all those years ago, just then seeing the characters, and then now just seeing how, how Peekapak has evolved, and all that you have, like the books, and then with the, the gamification part of it with students and the characters. Like, I love Leo the Hedgehog. I don't know. Just, I try not to pick favorites, but the one that, like, just going back to school and the nervousness that students can have with that, and helping them to kind of like, work through those challenges. I mean, all of the social emotional learning, like I said, I'm not an expert, but I'm getting better about it, and really trying to be intentional about bringing activities in. And when students have these stories or resources or characters or whatever that they can relate to, and then develop all these other skills. I know, like you said, the game that you have, but even some of the other topics like empathy and respect, just two that come to mind. And being able to like read a story and see the different characters and be like, oh, wow, Leo Hedgehog is experiencing the same thing that I am. And this is how Leo worked through that. So then I can do that. But even I'm sure, like with the younger students who get excited about the different characters, because something with the characters, or something they read or something they do resonates with their own experiences. And then that then helps them to build the, relationships and their social awareness. So it's not like it's just targeted on one of like the 5 SEL competencies. There's all of these possibilities. And I think sometimes, and myself included, like, you don't necessarily realize it. Like it seems like SEL is like this big, like, on top of everything else, I have to do this, but you have all of these resources, and it can be just a quick, like a story or an interaction or a game that then amplifies all the potential for students to build their skills in all of those competencies. So that was enough for me. But I was wondering, Amy, Andrew, you may have something else to add, but would love if you want to share anything, what it looks like, resources. You want to share your screen and show everybody who's watching, like, what they can expect when they go to find out about and get started with Peekapak.
Yeah, definitely. I would be happy to show a bit more. So let me share my screen. Give me one sec.
Okay.
There it is. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. I can. I'll verify with Andrew. Andrew, yep, thumbs up. All right. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. So this is the teaching side. So are any of our teachers who want to join Peekapak, it is actually free to join. There's always a free level that we give access. And so you can always review one level of our books with your students. There's always an introductory lesson as well. You could join through Clever or Google Classroom as well. And then for our partnering schools and districts, they'll get full access to that whole scope and sequence I mentioned. So these are all the different topics, like you mentioned, Rachelle, and we try to use terminology that really resonates with our families and our students. So we didn't use necessarily, for example, social awareness, whereas we use empathy. But in every one of our lessons, you'll always see an alignment to CASEL as well. When you do go into a topic, another barrier that we learned when we spoke with a lot of educators is that they really wanted to feel confident in teaching these skills. And so you'll see that we always kind of embed a lot of PD about, like, what's the research behind it, how it aligns to CASEL's framework, vocabulary that they can introduce to students, the learning objectives. We also have lots of book recommendations. And just like, if you want to bring this into your read alouds, we love, obviously, literature, as I mentioned. Again, those ELA state standards. And anyone can, take a view of all this kind of overview information on our site. And then, as I mentioned, all that scope and sequence to kind of helps teachers through that learning process is all laid out for them. You'll see there's movement, there's music, there's discussion, game-based learning. So there's a lot of variety for different types of learners as well. I'll quickly show you what the game looks like. So this is the world of Peekaville. I've just turned off the audio, but everything in Peekaville actually has a voiceover, and we actually interviewed, voice actors, and they had to show emotion, but just so it doesn't overlap right now with me. The books that teachers read actually can be read by the students, so they can be able to have those different reading levels. So this is at IJ, for example, and Fontes and Pinnell, so they can read it and listen to them. The other tool that I kind of quickly mention is this check-in tool. So students can design their own avatar with Peekapak. And I'll show you that in a second. And then they can see their avatar with these different emotions. They can learn about these different emotions. And then they can practice checking in on a daily basis. What's great about this is that they can start kind of overseeing kind of how they're feeling. We actually are adding this new feature this year where we're going to add in like a bit of a mindful moment. So after they've done their check-in, how can they practice, maybe some breathing exercises or maybe a short kind of meditation. You can see the avatar builder, so they get to become their own Peekapak character. They can choose their skin color. It is a unisex avatar builder, so we want to make it as inclusive as possible. And then other areas you'll see like kind of that Gaudi inspired design here, as well as over here. So you'll see some of that. But as you go into, as you see this arrow, excuse me, this is Zoe and she needs help. I'm not going to start that, but it's like an interactive story that comes to life. And then the last one I'll show you is we have like mini kind of comprehension games. So this is Mr. Bloom. They can visit him. They can pick a level within there. I'm going to skip the tutorial. And then there'll be different kind of questions. So someone's at peace, their body's relaxed. Who is it? If I pick the wrong one, I'll get some feedback. And then if I get it right, the eyes may be filled with tears. So sad Kenji. And I'll get some positive feedback around that. So that's kind of a quick overview of some of the resources. The only other thing I didn't show you was the home activities, but they're all here as well in terms of class updates and activities that families can do as well. Yeah. Oh, one last thing I didn't actually share was actually the storybook. So I'll quickly show you that, as definitely is the heart of the program. But you'll see the books are beautifully illustrated, very visual, and opportunities for students to really explore what's happening in the page, body language, in that arc throughout the story. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, I love, I mean, it's so visually engaging, and I don't know, there's a word that I can't think of that I want to use to describe it. I can't think of it right now, but it makes me happy and feel relaxed. And I don't know, like it's just a good feeling when you look at that, just what you're offering between the books and then the games for students. And Andrew, you look like you're going to say something and I cut you off.
No, you're fine. I love that. I mean, some of those levels that I was inquisitive about there a moment ago, you see them all in that example, right? Everything from how are you feeling today to start to put that language out there, to the scenarios that those characters are in that they're reading about, and just opportunities to pick up on those strategies. I just think that all that work together is incredibly meaningful. And I'm curious to know actually, what has been the feedback from teachers in terms of the impact of something like this on class culture? Because not only obviously is this work good for the individual, and I can hear such consistency with, yes, this is something we encourage that families practice at home as well, but kind of I wouldn't call it secondary because I love class culture, but like maybe that's not where your mind might go. Have you gotten any feedback on that? Because I would think this would have to be pretty dramatic in terms of how it improves in that aspect.
For sure. Our classrooms, it's interesting because a lot of what we actually find empowering as an organization is actually the stories of what's happening offline. So we don't, we might see usage on the game and, interactions and all that kind of stuff. But then the most rewarding part is actually checking in with our school partners and saying, okay, how is this going? How are teachers' experiences? And they always come back with like beautiful images of like how they've used all our posters and how students are so excited to like interact with the characters. And often actually one of the fun parts of our activity, so we have our first lesson is this letter from the main character. So say Leo writes to the classroom, and we actually have this like pre-designed letter from Leo, and the teacher will read it, especially for the little ones, like imagine pre-K, K1. And they actually can write to Leo to give him advice about how he can overcome the challenge in the letter. And so these classrooms, I can show you some photos maybe, but they like write to our classroom and or to our company to Leo, and it's amazing. Like the responses we get from these classrooms, like they're so like thrilled and they're so excited, and it's like the best thing ever. I can show you quickly what it looks like, but it's such a treat. We always encourage, no matter if you're like a free user or a paid user, like please can you see the hi Zoe?
Oh
Yeah, that's
So this is
awesome.
the classroom, another one. They're just like so excited for them to send the letters. They'll write like, and some of them will draw us pictures. Like it's amazing. Anyway, so we always write back to them, but we always hear about like, you know, the fact that students really are always going back to the story. So it's not just like during Peekapak time, but it becomes part of all their school time. So say they're in math, they'll be like, oh, I'm really, you know, struggling with this exercise. He's like, you know, remember when Cody had to learn growth, like not, I don't know, maybe some of the younger kids don't say growth mindset, but they had to learn how to like persevere or overcome that challenge. They'll end up drawing those connections. And often our classrooms who end up like investing more in the world, I think are the ones that actually even get more impact. So we've had, I remember this like one school in Brooklyn, they actually created wooden characters of all our characters.
Oh, wow.
And then all the students actually pose like our characters in our lineup. And then they created wooden characters of all the students. And then they took all our backdrops and they started encouraging students to make their own stories. And it was beautiful because I remember going into the classroom and no one knew who I was, but they were like telling me all about, you know, how they wanted to play berry ball and, you know, like that they got these little berries in the basket and that this is how they played and this is the story they thought of. And it was just amazing how much, and then like even just seeing how they applied the SEL skills, like they, another good story from that same classroom, actually, I remember the pre-K teacher was so impressed because they had read the book on respect. And the students were actually on the playground, and one kid was actually kind of being a bit of a bully. And the other kid turned to them and said, "You're being like Zoe. Do you really want to be like Zoe?" And the other kid said, "Oh no, I don't want to be like Zoe." And so they're like, "What do we do?" And they didn't know what to do, but they actually said, "Okay, let's go talk to the teacher. Maybe they can help us resolve what we should do." But it was such a like mature conversation to like arrive at the fact that like there was a connection to the story and that this wasn't, you know, a right action, and then they went to go resolve it. So, and these were like 4-year-olds, so I was really impressed by that. So we do hear a lot of that, and I think that's definitely really big motivation for our team whenever we hear those stories and see the impact that we're making in the classroom.
Yeah, I mean, even just me like looking at those, like all of those happy faces and they're so excited writing the letters, it has to be a tremendous feeling for you to see like where you started and how much you've done over the last couple of years, but especially now in this past year and a half, as we've experienced, you know, pandemic teaching and the COVID experience, whatever you want to call it. It has not been easy for anybody, adults or students. And so, of course, SEL is important for adults, but for our kids, having something like this that, and I meant to ask you that too. And I know like time goes by so quickly, but I didn't want to forget to ask you when it comes to this past since March of 2020, when schools closed, what did you notice? Like with Peekapak, did you see an increase in the number of educators using, you know, like Peekaville for their purposes and just looking for more resources for students to use at home?
Oh, for sure. So we saw a huge, I think a three times increase on site traffic. We actually, like many other ed tech companies, opened up our resources for free access during that first March to June. So we're happy to partner with a lot of school boards and districts. We also it was a good opportunity for us to listen deeply again, and we made adaptations. So, for example, all our lessons or most of our lessons actually come with presentation format, like easy to present lessons for Zoom or Google Hangouts. We actually created a whole series of pandemic lessons. So imagine in the world of Peekaville, there was unfortunately the Pika flu. And so they had to kind of learn about a lockdown. I can quickly show you an image from there, but there's Leo with his mask. And then here's the book that we created about returning to school with the Pika flu, unfortunately. But we started adding a lot more opportunities for teachers to kind of embed that and use that in the remote setting. And so there's a lot of flexibility that was ended up being built into the world. And also we released an iPad and iPad and Android app. So that really helped, I think, also in terms of supporting, be it if you're in the class or home.
Yeah.
Gosh, I
Wow.
love how intentional you all have been with making it immersive. And I think that's really where that pivot to being able to transition those strategies and scenarios from narrative to their personal life is optimally, the bridge is there, right? I guess like when you start to like build it out that way. And so it's just really incredible to see the intentionality that you all have brought around that, because I think that's so important.
Oh, thank you. We ended up partnering with Kahoot for those lessons. So those are completely free on Kahoot's website. And they were so much fun because we would sit there and be like, oh, like, you know, maybe we should be talking about our elders this week. And so one of the activities was like actually writing a letter to like a local elder, or another activity was about, oh, you know, a lot of students are feeling cramped in their, you know, rooms in their personal space. And so let's talk about how we create a personal space that you feel comfortable with and you can able to work from home. And so it was actually like a lot of creativity all at once over that like first couple of months of like building kind of custom lessons that would support the local community and what they need.
Wow, that's awesome. It's like, I don't know. So I dropped some different things in the comments for people to check out and go to Peekapak. There is a webinar coming up on interactive demo on Wednesday. So I dropped that link in there. And those are always like, I joined in several of like during the SEL summit that you had this summer, just wealth of resources and the people that you had speaking and everything that was shared in there. I just constantly taking notes and learning so much. And anybody who can't actually join in live, definitely register, because then you get the recording and you can go back and you get all the resources too. So quite helpful. And I know we've gone a little bit over, but I wonder if we do we have 3 minutes, because Andrew has probably 3 items for scavenger hunt. And since we were talking about games and everything, but before that, Amy, thank you so much for being with us here today and sharing your story and showing us and everybody who's watching what it looks like, the benefits, and hopefully everybody will like dive right in and explore it, because it is tremendous for students. Clearly, you can see that with all of those different classrooms from around the world that are joining in and learning and experiencing it. So thank you again.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for the scavenger hunt now.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right.
What happens.
Yeah, second round of the scavenger hunt here went pretty well the first time, but I got some different questions for you. And so the way that this works is that I'll bring up the item that you're looking for, and the first person to grab that and showcase it here on the screen gets the point. So we'll do 3 of these and do best of 3. So your first item is something caffeinated or that held something caffeinated.
I'm out on that one.
This could be an iced coffee.
Hey, all right. I clearly had way too many. That's where my inspiration came from. So point to Amy, I guess, on the first one. That was quick.
Yeah, I got nothing. I got water, which there's no caffeine in this, which explains a lot.
I also have, I'm going to do a plug for Sips. I love tea too, which is really good. I get like tea sent to my house. All right. Second one, a picture of you somewhere more than 30 minutes away from your home.
Oh.
Done right there.
It's Nashville. It's got to be Nashville.
It is. Thank you to Jennifer Casatod from Canada for sending me this lovely right here next to me, which is unfortunately more than 30 minutes from home. Sorry, I was so excited. I was all over that one.
There you go. Well, I love, as well. So I was sort of letting that kind of be the inspiration for that one. And if we're only going to do 3, all right, let's do something that would prove you work in education.
Books. Oh, look, yours is way better. I mean, this one's great. I don't want Catlin to be like, wait, that's my book. But it's a fantastic book. But Classroom Chaos is Yeah. Amy gets the point on that one. She had her book first.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, we'll give her that one. And that's a great opportunity to just sort of close talking about Peekapak, right?
Yeah.
So
That's fun.
scavenger hunt 2 over. Amy, nice job on the win.
Amy wins. Yay.
You.
Oh my gosh. Andrew, that is like a new favorite because we did the Would You Rather or like, yeah, Would You Rather, Truth or Dare, and then Family Feud, and we did trivia for a while. I am a fan of the scavenger hunt one. So whenever it's you, it's going to be scavenger hunt with Andrew. So
Here for it.
anyway, well, thank you again, Amy, and thanks to everybody who joined in and who is watching later on. Don't forget to check out all the links that were dropped into the comments. Check out Peekapak. Get started today. If you are watching this now or before the 18th, sign up for that interactive demo that's happening on Wednesday and learn more. And of course, reach out to, put your information back up there as well. Reach out to Amy to learn more. You can follow Peekapak, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere, I think. I'm always tagging you in it. So thanks to everybody. And we will see you later this week. And as always, Andrew, thank you for being my co-host today.
Anytime.
All right. We'll catch you all next time.